over the period of time, you have been able to take that culture and you have been able to create trillions of these bacteria in your system, which is actually reason for your immunity. Now, immunity is a buzzword right now because of the pandemic. Every single person is talking about immunity, and especially in India, we were very proud to say, "Hey, you know what? Our immunes are very good, and that's why we will not get into any infection." Sadly enough, there is a need for us to increase this immunity, and the main reason for us to increase this immunity is because when you have these kind of infectious diseases or even the lifestyle diseases, the immunity plays a major role. And we will go with our panelists to understand what role it plays, how probiotics increase their immunity, how probiotics help you increase the immunity. So what has happened in last few years that now suddenly probiotics have taken center stage? You know, we all talk about the probiotics in the term that it has taken center stage because these good bacteria are affecting our health in all the ways that it could be. It could be women health, it could be oral health, it could be digestion. So it has gone over and beyond actually just the digestion and immunity. It has gone and affected, or it has gone and shown a significant importance even in the mental health. I'll just give you one example. When these celebrities, especially Bollywood celebrities, we look up to them. In India, when they come on the national channel and they say that I fought depression. Now, first and foremost, I get into depression when I hear this. Why? Because what is it that is not there with you? You have name, fame. I mean, I can just name few of them. But all of these, they say, I have had a time in my life where I fought depression. And this thing, actually, if you go back a little bit and listen and understand them, somewhere the gut bacteria did not talk to your brain, and the serotonin uptake was not enough, and the mood swings were there, and you fought depression. So that could be one part of it. I'm just making it a lighter note right now. Of course, probiotics are much more deeper with what we have. We have an eminent panel here, starting from George, who is IPA, International Probiotic Association Executive Director. We have somebody who is from the academic, that is Dr. Renu Agrawal. She has given her life doing research at CFTRI in Mysore on probiotics alone. We have Dr. Neerja Hajela with us, who is actually the probiotic product in the market today in India, which is the Yakult product. We all know probiotics only because of Yakult, and thank you so much, ma'am. Really, it has helped shape India, or at least the awareness. I still see Yakult giving, from 2006 to now, I still see Yakult giving one-page ad where you have brand ambassadors like Shilpa Shetty, who is obviously a model to look out for, and Kajol, who is also another cinestar who really influences people around. We have with us Sachin Saxena from Marico, and he would be emphasizing more on prebiotics as to, because these probiotics which are there in your system need to also grow, and so you need another thing for it or food for it. And taking all these things into consideration, we have Dr. Jagdeep Madan, who is actually helping us to understand as a nutritionist and as a president of this association as to why these two in combo do not work as 1 plus 1 is equal to 2, but it works as 1 plus 1 is equal to 11. And that is where I think I have a wonderful, wonderful panel here. I'll take my first question first question to George, because I understand that probiotics in India are not really very well understood as it is understood in North America. Um, why actually, before just taking the question and opening it to panelists, I think I should just mention this thing. Why exactly probiotics have become important? The reason is because the food that you are eating today, be whatever reason, the pesticide, the insecticide, the fertilizers, have become 40% less nutritional than what it was. So your intake of food is not allowing this good bacteria, which was given by your mother when you were born, and you have cultivated it over the years to actually be stable enough or propagate in your stomach, and thereby causing lot of diseases. Based on that part, we have seen that these probiotics need to be replenished back. Now, how do you need to replenish back? It could be through food or it could be through dietary supplement. So these are, or if you had any disease, it could sort out through that part. So you could use probiotics even to cure some of the gut cancers. There are clinical evidences now. Going forward, I think so. I will do is I'll just open up the panel discussion right now with you, George, wherein I would like to give us a flair of what it is like probiotic nutrition on international
Mm.
stage. And then, with respect to that, I'll open it in the Indian stage. But I would like you to take us through the international stage where probiotics they are there, and why is it that probiotics on the international stage is so important.
I thank you, Shri. Thank you for that introduction. You don't have to convince me. I say the probiotics are the most important market category in the world, but I'm biased. But for all the reasons that you mentioned, the importance of probiotics, the benefits they bring to us, for many many reasons, they're all very you've underlined very important points. But I want to just let's step back and see what's going on with the global market, because I think maybe there's an education or a consumer outreach that has to be done in India, like you mentioned. Maybe it is not reaching the people just yet, but there's still a big journey that has to be had. But even at the world level, and I'll present some market figures, even at the world level, where probiotics have really grown in the last 5 years, it's really the uptake and the growth has been amazing in the last 5 years. I still believe there's still a lot of work to do from the education and the outreach perspective. If we think about the global level of market, we're looking at a market right now that's worth about 45 billion US dollars. If we look at within that, you have 32 billion US dollars, which is fortified yogurts with probiotics. And in those markets, I think from memory, because we did some consumer data survey, the biggest market right now is China, followed by Japan, then the US. Very, quickly growing markets are the Philippines, Indonesia, India is there as well. If we look over to the supplement side of things, the probiotic supplement market right now in the world is worth about 6.5 billion US dollars. The US is the biggest market. They like their supplements. It comes in at about 2.3 billion. And last year, Italy was second place, but last year China overtook Italy for the second biggest market at around $800 million. And that is because China's market is growing at a pretty fast rate. They're growing close to 10 to 11% annually, whereas other markets are not in double digits. Italy, US, they're growing anywhere between 4 and 8%. The market itself is forecasted to hit about 75 billion US dollars globally in the next 4 to 5 years. And this is figures coming from brick and mortars. If we look at the e-commerce market, some of the data partners we work with did some research. The e-commerce market right now is estimated at about a billion US dollars, and they only looked at very limited countries. So the e-commerce research is still developing, so we don't even know exactitudes of how much that market is worth. So if you're looking at the e-commerce market at 1 billion US dollars, half of it is almost the US. Then IP did a consumer survey to see, okay, so who's consuming these products? So we looked at APAC, we looked at Europe, and we looked at the US. The demographics are very similar. Millennials are very high consumers. More than 50% of the consumers in all these regions are the millennials. And we saw a shift where the woman was the decision maker in the past. In the last 2 years, we saw the men also become important in terms of the choice when it came to the types of probiotics and probiotic products that were chosen. Probiotic users in these regions are, affluent people. They're educated, and whatnot, and they understand kind of the benefits. If I can add, I think from what we see up and coming, all the health benefits you mentioned, IPA conducted a big research. It took about 2 years, and we looked at all the clinical trials that have been registered at two databases: the WHO database and the clinicaltrials.gov database. And we saw there was over 1,600 human clinical trials with probiotics, with hundreds of indications, hundreds and hundreds of different indications. But what we saw that came out in those indications were the classical diarrhea, immunity, and the up and coming indications in those human clinicals in the study that we did, we saw was gut brain axis, which had a lot to do with, mental alertness, anxiety, all related to gut conditions and metabolic syndrome. So just to give an idea of some of the things in the research that we have done. So it's a market which has grown, and people around the world understand its benefits, but I still feel we need education. Just to finish, the IPA, because of this, we wanted to target healthcare professionals. So what we did, we went into a PR campaign from October 2020 to January 2021, and we targeted specific media channels: television, radio, streaming programs online, social media, and we were targeting specifically the consumers. So we had over 925, 930 airings, and we reached a target audience in the North America of over 9.5 million people. And some of the people that were phoning in on the shows and had questions, it was interesting to hear. There's there's kind of an understanding, but like just that alone, that press campaign that we did made me understand that there's still a lot to be done to make people understand. Yeah.
Thank you so much, George. And I do understand this is when we are talking about millions of people who are being educated, or the awareness campaign is being done. One such thing which I need to just mention a little bit here is why probiotics are important is simple. It's our own experiences. Like we go through any of the infectious diseases, you had simply some bacterial infection, you took 3 days to come out of it or 5 days to come out of it, but after that, because you had antibiotics, after that you have taken 7 days to recover, and that is because your good bacteria got depleted. So this was as simple as how it could have been how it can be just be relevant to people. And in India, we have been known to take these kind of foods, which are probiotic foods, in our traditional food system. So dietary microbes have been there in one form or the other. But how it has changed now, I would like Dr. Renu to come in and just give us a brief idea as to how probiotics have really changed, and is India on the world map with probiotic foods that are available. So as much as how you have explained it to us, George, in Indian scenario also there are some, as Nirja had already alluded, that there are some changes which have come in. And Dr. Renu, would you like to throw some light on that? I think you are muted, Dr. Renu. You need to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me? So thank you, Dr. Sri Lakshmi, and a very good morning to all of you. In fact, if we see our country, India, traditionally, we have been eating dahi and buttermilk, curry, idli, dosa, and so many things. People, they don't mind when we are fermenting the batter overnight and eating it. But as soon as we talk about, adding a bacteria from outside, especially in the rural areas, people have got apprehension. But if we look at in the urban areas, today the scenario has changed. Now people are coming out, especially we have Dr. Nirja also with us. The Danone has taken up so much, as one small bottle, people, they want to have it because they are enjoying good life out of it. And now the Yakult has come out with a new product where they are fortifying it with vitamin D and vitamin E. Isn't it, Dr. Nirja? That is called as Yakult Light.
Yes.
Similarly, they have other products also in India that is called as Kashi Wave, which, has very good for digestion, and they use a cereal there. Even apart from yogurt, people are trying cereal-based product with probiotics and prebiotics into that. Even in South India, we have a very good product called as curd rice. Now, Ricera has come out with a rice yogurt. So they have rice and yogurt along with probiotics into that. That is all in the Indian scenario I'm talking about. There is Mother Dairy, which has yogurt. Gopi is another company. Pure Lek, Amul, of course, everybody knows me. They also have desserts, ice creams also, probiotic ice creams Amul is having apart from yogurt. And Nesvita, Nestle has another thing. Apart from that, we have in Hyderabad, Myrobax, which deals with humans, with agriculture, because agriculture also in the soil, if you add probiotics, it improves the fertility. Animal systems, marine, even the fish, if your probiotic is there in water, so they are also dealing with aquaculture and bioremediation. Similarly, there is another company in Hyderabad called as Unique Biotech. That is also dealing with, especially with woman health. They add probiotics to enhance the health of the woman. There is another company in Pondicherry, which is called as Alliance Bioscience, and Agri Life from Hyderabad, and also it has a unit in Bangalore, which deals with human health, animal health, and also biofertilizer. If these biofertilizers are added into the soil, the crop yield is much more higher. Then there is Ruchi from Mumbai, where they have a consortium of probiotic cultures. Sami Lab from Bangalore. Then there is Tablet India. And Mother Dairy has come out with Be Active, which is very, very useful and wellness program. And then, of course, we have Triphase, which is having a thermophilic bacteria. We have Dr. Sri Lakshmi from there. Then there is Karmabite Forte. These are all capsules. Usually the doctor prescribes all these capsules in life, which is having bifidobacterium as well as lactobacillus in that. Then there is Bold Fit, which is having 16 strains of probiotics together. Then there is Noble Foods with 10 strains and along with Amla. So they have added a fruit also there along with probiotic cultures. Kepiva, Health Aid, Karmabite Forte, and Pro Nutrition. All of them, they have 9 strains, 10 strains. That is a consortium of probiotic cultures. Some of them, they have bifidobacterium also. So this is the scenario of Indian perspective, that they are, there are so many manufacturers which people are really, looking forward. Awareness has come. It's only that in rural areas, we have to still increase the awareness. Thank you. You are muted now.
So I thank you, Dr. Renu, to bring in a perspective that Indian consumers are also ready to take probiotics. They do understand the benefit of probiotics, and they are also understanding why it is important to take probiotics.
Absolutely.
Another area which we need to understand also is that the animal nutrition in India is picking up probiotics, especially the
Yes.
probiotic yeast, that is the Saccharomyces boulardii, which is very well in documented, and some field trials have been done in poultry as well as in aqua, as you rightly said. So I see that going forward, both the Indian consumers and the Indian industries see a very big front opening up, bringing in good products fortified with the right strains, and taking it forward to put in
In
there.
fact, we had a
I
program with Suguna Poultry Farms where we made a feed for them with probiotic culture, and the yield
Yes.
of the number of eggs and the chicken, it had improved a lot.
Yes, and especially even the organic minerals and yeast which you can
Yes.
go with it. I agree with you. There are some poultry farms which are actually taking it in their stride,
Yeah.
because antibiotics is something which is getting banned even in Bangladesh. So let alone in India, people do understand it is important. Going a little further into this topic, I think, Dr. Renu, I would like you to take us through a bit of academic interest, whereas how do you do the culture collection, identification, characterization of these probiotics? Because, and where do you deposit it? I do understand you mentioned that you have deposited in MTCC in Chandigarh. Similarly, now that we are introducing, okay, probiotic is important, people are listening to us, people are thinking about this, next step is, where do I go and get these strains? Do I have to isolate? Not every lab is fit with a microbiology lab. So then how do I take it forward? I would like you to emphasize on especially where people can get strains from to add on to their food, which can be called as probiotic fortified food.
I think it's a very good question. And I will start with the identification. I mean, starting with the isolation. Most of the times, these probiotic cultures, we isolate from the fermented product. It can be a fermented dal, it can be a dosa batter, it can be idli batter, anything, we can have from the, usually we are taking, if we are, it is for human consumption. Otherwise, we can isolate it from the soil and other things also. After isolation and in the lab, anyway, that methods I'm not going to go in depth, we identify it, starting with the morphology, with the physiological conditions, temperature, pH, time, at what temperature the culture grows, how much, what is the sugar fermentation, all those things. And then we go through the Burgess manual. Especially for these microorganisms, we call Burgess manual as our Bible. So, and then we say about catalase, gram positive or gram negative, sporulation, all these things, they come there. Then comes the characterization. Once we have isolated, we have identified morphologically, then we come to the characterization. Very important part is have the simulation of digestive tract. If we look into the jejunum, many times I have seen most of the papers, they say, they have done the bile concentration 0.2% or something, and they call the culture as a probiotic. If you look at the jejunum, I will go one by one in the GIT tract. And the probiotic culture has to sustain the whole thing if we are looking into the beneficial properties. The jejunum has a bile concentration starting from the stomach, it will go, the pH will go to 1.5. 2 and 1.5. Many of the papers you see, they will take the pH 2 or 2.5. But so many times, because it has got having hydrochloric acid in the stomach, and the pH goes to 1.5. So I think it is very important to check our cultures if they are able to survive in that particular pH. Next comes the jejunum, where the pH is 7.5. Imagine from pH 2, the culture has to again go to 7.5, and the bile concentration becomes 4%, where the culture has to stay for 4 hours. Now, this bile concentration, many papers, if you see, they just test for cholic acid, but it's not like that. The bile salt mix contains cholic acid, deoxycholic acid, quinodecholic acid, and lithocholic acid, which is only 0.7% of the bile salt mix, apart from bilirubin, 0.2%, and 0.5% fat, and the rest is water. So this is very, very important step if we are characterizing a probiotic culture. Next, let us come to the small intestine. Now the pH goes up to 8, and the bile salt concentration from 4% in jejunum comes down to 2%, which stays for 12 hours. So that has to be studied under laboratory conditions. Again, in the large intestine, the pH goes 9. Now you can imagine the probiotic culture from 2% in or 1.5 in pH in stomach. In the large intestine, it comes to 9. And bile concentration, 1.5%. From jejunum, 4%. So all these things, and here it stays for, the culture will stay for 24 hours. Especially if you look at the yeast part, they don't adhere. And the beneficial effect of the yeast, say you're talking about Saccharomyces boulardii or something like that, they give the beneficial effect in the large intestine, where it has to sustain for 24 hours. So it is very, very important for any researcher or industry to see if the culture. I brought actually many samples. I will not name here, but I brought many commercial samples where I saw they were not able to sustain the simulating condition of GIT tract. The next one is antimicrobial activity. because we are looking into the antimicrobial activity against different pathogens, say Vibrio or Staphylococcus or E. coli or whatever it may be. So initially we do a well diffusion assay, look at the halo region, whatever it is, and then separate it, the fractions by HPLC. Now each fraction which we have isolated in HPLC tested for antimicrobial activity. The fraction which has the antimicrobial activity, only that fraction is taken. If we are going to add in a capsule or in a form where we want to say that this is my functional food, it is having activity against the Helicobacter, or it is having activity against Vibrio cholera. So only that fraction, after doing the STS page, knowing the molecular weight, and then confirming it by LCMS. Similarly, resistance to antibiotics. Now, say for example, a doctor, today we are talking about a combination of antibiotics as well as our probiotic culture. Now, the doctor prescribes, because it happened to me once actually. I was having an infection and then doctor gave me some antibiotic. I asked the doctor, is this particular microorganism, because I am a scientist, but I don't know about the common man. They don't ask. Each capsule is around 35-40 rupees. So if this particular organism, which is written on the label, Lactobacillus acidophilus, let us say, is this resistant to this particular amoxicillin what you are giving? So very important thing is, even on the labeling it should be there, and what is the resistance, at what concentration? Because say for example, the doctor gives us 3 times a day or 2 times a day particular mg. Is it going to, and say for 3 days, is it going to be beneficial? Because it is not only the consumption of the probiotic culture, but is it going to be alive there? Because these have to be live cultures and go adherence to the mucin membrane there. Next is adherence property is very, very important. One has to check. And then we can go into the functional properties, like say lactose intolerance or anti-tumor activity, or immunoglobulins like interleukin or interferon, cholesterol reduction, oral caries, probiotics, they inhibit Streptococcus mutans also. Another thing is it should be genetically stable. Like see this COVID, nowadays they are saying new mutant has come. So if our culture is not genetically stable, then it will not give that property. So it is very, very important to study the molecular biology of it, and it should be genetically stable.
Dr. Renu Agrawal, where can we find these cultures? I think if a little bit for the industry, that would be helpful to
Absolutely.
understand where exactly can we find this culture, so that people
Yeah.
can go and take it.
I will first take the Indian perspective. There are some good institutes in like CFTRI, that is Central Food Technological Research Institute, where I have worked for 32 years. So, but there they don't have a culture collection center, but they maintain the cultures. Then there is NCDC, that is in National Dairy Research Institute, Karnal in Haryana, which is a national depository of authentic dairy microbial cultures. Next is MTCC, which I told you, our cultures we have deposited in Chandigarh. That is the Institute of Microbial Technology. And then there is another National Dairy Development Board in Anand, Gujarat. They have a culture collection center, which they call it NDDBCC. That is a National Dairy Development Culture Collection Center. And then Nestle also in Haryana, they have their own culture collection center. I'm sure Dr. Neerja will endorse that. And if we look into the global scenario, then there are many culture collection centers. One is ATCC, of course, American Type Culture Collection in Washington, D.C. Then the biggest global network is WFCC, that is a World Federation for Culture Collection, where they have, a consortium of different countries from Europe. Then there is a regional network that is called as ECCO, that is basically in Italy, where they have 3.68 lakh of probiotic cultures from 103 countries, which is a European culture collection organization. And then there are also biobanks. So that is a global network. One is ISBER, that is International Society for Biological and Environmental Repository. The regional network, which is called as ESBB, that is European, Middle East, and African Society for Biopreservation and Biobanking. Then there is a EU infrastructure, which is called as BBRI, which is Biobanking and Biomolecular Resource Research Infrastructure. So these are the different, then there is a pan-European organization, which is called as CORBEL, that is Coordinated Research Infrastructure Building Enduring Life Science Services. So these people, who are in the industry can look into it globally.
Thank you so much. Really helpful, and I'm sure people would have noted it down. But if not, then we can always share it with them later on. Going forward, now we know probiotics are important. We know how we are able to take, isolate it, characterize it, or even deposit it. Dr. Nirja, I would like you to take the next point that I would like to bring. What is the role in improving overall health, metabolism, and immunity? And as you know, Yakult is known for changing the immunity scenario in India. At least that is what very well coordinated has been awareness program has been given to the Indian population. I would like you to have your views on it, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sri Lakshmi. It's a real pleasure to be here. We've learned a lot in this last 20-25 minutes. Yes, when you look at probiotics, as we all say, that you reiterating what Dr. Renu Agarwal just said, that they are organisms which have to transit the GI tract and reach the intestine alive in large numbers to give you a scientifically proven health benefit. So most common probiotics are lactobacillus and bifidobacteria, and when they work, they basically work in the small intestine and in the large intestine respectively. So lactic acid and acetic acid are the end products of fermentation. They are organic acids, and what they do is they help to reduce the pH or luminal pH, and therefore discourage the growth of pathogenic bacteria. So the main important function of probiotics is that they help to change the composition of the gut microbiota. We have spoken so much about the gut microbes and the role of these microbes in almost every aspect of human health, including brain disorders. So what these probiotics do is they change the intestinal composition of the intestinal flora. They decrease the pathogenic organisms, increase the beneficial components of the microbes. What they also do is they produce something which is known as short chain fatty acids, and these short chain fatty acids help in improving intestinal motility and regularize bowel movements. So, by and large, probiotics they aid in digestion. They help to absorb nutrients. They help in discouraging the growth of pathogenic organisms. They also help in improving bowel disorders or improving intestinal motility. Now, another very important role of probiotics is that they help in down regulating inflammation, they improve the intestinal barrier function, they also help in ensuring an intact barrier. So, when you're talking about metabolic disorders, there is a lot of scientific data. In fact, this first study came from Turnberg et al., where they saw that when they transplanted the microbes from an obese mice into a lean mice, the lean mice became obese, clearly indicating that there was some link between obesity and the intestinal microbes. Thereafter, there was a lot of talk about we have two major groups of bacteria in our intestines, and that is Bacteroidetes and Firmicutes. So there was a lot of talk about changes in the composition of Bacteroidetes and Firmicutes and metabolic disorders. And then after that, there have been findings which have shown that people who have metabolic disorders or obesity or these kind of conditions, there is a link between the intestinal microbes and these metabolic disorders. So, when there is an increase in a particular group of gram-negative organisms, when you have a metabolic disorder, you suffer a condition which is known as endotoxemia. So these gram-negative bacteria have a component which is a harmful component known as lipopolysaccharides. And this lipopolysaccharide can actually translocate through the intestinal barrier and cause a condition of endotoxemia, which is low-grade inflammation, and this leads to insulin resistance and also type 2 diabetes. So when I'm talking about intestinal microbes, the increase in the harmful pathogenic organisms causes these conditions, and now there are defined mechanisms by which these microbes can actually, result in obesity or metabolic disorders. Uh, so that's how, it is, they're seeing that there is a lot of dysbiosis or an imbalance in the intestinal microbes when you come to these kind of conditions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Neerja. Absolutely pleasure to hear the science behind actually these microbes and in a product which is very well known in India. Not just in this product, but any of the gut bacteria related products which are in this domain. George, I would just like to pick your brain on this. Do you think because in last 1 year we have been going through this pandemic, and I'll just relate it because Yakult is known for increasing immunity. So I just want to pick your brains, George, on that on an international forefront. That do you think in this last 1 year, since we have been sanitizing ourselves, I mean, immunity has been compromised or has been is less, and that's why these probiotics also now are more required to be consumed?
Yes, yes. What we've seen, and obviously we have to listen to the health agencies and be careful because of the pandemic and the virus. But at the same time, I think populations and people overdid it. So that resulted in robbing our immune systems of good bacteria. The lack of the typical exposure of everyday good and bad microbes doesn't allow our immune systems to understand and even forgets how to deal with them. Think about it. Over 70% of our immune system resides in our gut. You robbed your gut of a year from over sanitizing, over being super clean, not allowing yourself to be exposed to these types of situations. Eventually, what happens, your immune system breaks down because you don't know how to deal with it once normal life resumes. And that's been proven. What's interesting in the last year as well, because of the pandemic, we have some data which showed the knee-jerk reaction on online searches for probiotics was for immune health, and the second biggest surge was for brain gut, how to deal with depression. So these were huge areas, and yeah, we saw that the over cleaning, and that was kind of our message in the public campaign that we did. The public media campaign was listen to your government, be careful, be prudent, but at the same time, don't completely go sterile. 15 years ago, we were saying, go out, exchange, play outside. We were telling our kids, go in the yard. And this bubble boy, bubble girl existence was something that we were pushing against. And what happened this past year with the pandemic, it's exactly what happened was this bubble existence that everybody lived in that is now, I think, will have some repercussions with our immune systems. We'll see, the immune systems will take a hit. Yeah.
Sure, I do understand the impact that it is going to create. Just because sterilizing yourself is not something.
Yes,
Actually, eating mud was something in our household was not considered bad because in the soil you had probiotics,
of
though
course.
they are spore formers which used to go in our gut, and but it used to help us clean our gut. So yes, going forward, it is going to be a little problem. Anyway, now that it has been established very beautifully that why it is important, how things are going bad, pandemic has also created a lot of awareness. But these probiotics to multiply in your tummy, you need something called prebiotics. And Sachin, I would like to pick your brain on that, wherein I would like to hear you. What is it that on in Indian front that we have different prebiotics, or is it what is it that Marico Industries also is looking into this domain?
Thank you, Lakshmi, and thanks to all of you. So, when we see like what is a prebiotic, so in prebiotic is a like non-digestible in that way, and is gives a food to your good bacteria. Now that mechanism is very important to understand, and we see our whatever the research published recently, like how the fiber consumption is happening in India. So is like say RDA is 35 to 40 versus we do consume 15, say 15 to 35. And in that also our rural population, so where the tribal areas are there, there is a consumption of fiber is further low. Now, when we eat this much fiber, out of which, in general, say like 1/4 or 1/5 comes as a soluble fiber. So, in general, the consumption of soluble fiber should happen between, say, like 6 to 8 grams, whereas we don't consume that much. And that's the main problem happen in this case. So, it's very important to see that which are the food matrices which we can consume. Those can give naturally as a like, yes, there's a prebiotic subset kind of thing, or else we can add through some additional concentrated part as well. So where we did a study, and in that we got a yes, oat is one thing. Oat contain a beta glucan, and the content of beta glucan varies say like around say 4 to 6%. And we did ourselves a study in that, like when it's a kind of a small study, and where the group of people had consumed oat versus other normal food, and the short chain fatty acids production increased say like around 10 times more in this case, and that was largely happening because of beta glucan. Other than that, when we worked on, say, like a protein mixes and or meal replacers, where we identify, yes, that's also important to look on the sensorial aspect of food matrix. Because if you will not play around sensorial aspect, people are not going to consume your food. And that's also a challenge for oats also. Like oats, a kind of, when you have a one bowl consumption of oats, it give you 1 to 1.5 gram of beta glucan that become a very sticky or viscous mass and is difficult for you to swallow in this case. So rather than giving a kind of that kind of matrix for a kind of meal replacer, which is a kind of liquid or say shake kind of product, we looked out, and in that case, yes, that is a inulin is a like a preferred choice came in this case. So these are also kind of few of the ingredient which we can look onto that, like your oligosaccharide. So say like a soya oligosaccharide, or say inulin is also one thing. Fructo oligosaccharide, which is very much is being used in industry in various format of product. It does not interfere for your sensorial aspect of product as well, but it does suffice the need for what is required for good bacteria to have a kind of food in that. So that's the way how we are running our model also. So if you will see here, there is a product range, say like in a protein based product, where we are working as kind of a different soluble fiber. But yes, there is a on the oats or say masala oat journey, which inherent containing as a say like beta glucan as a soluble fiber, which add on into that. And that's the way how we are looking at this. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sachin. And I agree with you. It is not just about prebiotic that needs to go in. Fiber has taken, again, a very important aspect in our food intake, at least both in the urban areas as well as in tier two cities. But when you go to the villages or tribal areas, in fact, that is what we eat. India happens to be more of a vegetarian population than the other. So that's why these things, they come as a part of dietary input. Taking further on that, I am not the right person. I think I should invite Dr. Madan to take us through the diet and dietary microbes, and whether the prebiotic and probiotic can be a dynamic duo, or it could be 1 plus 1 need not be 2, it could be actually 11. What are your thoughts on that, Dr. Madan?
Yeah. So, very good afternoon to everybody. And thank you so much, Cinex, for giving me this opportunity. And thank you, Dr. Sri Lakshmi, for such an exciting panel discussion. And I think there have been a lot of learnings from all the eminent people who are here in this panel. So I think maybe I'm the last batsman, and I
And we
am
need a sixer from you, ma'am.
and I'm going to take the quote with the background from where I come. And as a nutritionist, I vouch again for a statement that your food can work as medicine provided you use it like a medicine. So, to my mind, I think I would say that you are what your gut health is. And it's your food which makes your gut health. And there is huge amount of data in nutrition science, wherein, and we've done some credible work also in the field of prebiotics, especially wherein how Mr. Sachin spoke about the good quality carbohydrates. So we are talking about oligosaccharides, we are talking about resistant starches, we are talking about dietary fiber. And what we have done through our research cell is that we could quantify the resistant starch content of natural foods through analysis, create an experimental diet, give the experimental group 16 gram of resistant starch through natural foods in an experimental diet, and believe me, in a span of 2 weeks we could see a change in the gut flora, because we did the pre and the post fecal microflora testing. So, and in addition to that, we found phenomenal results in terms of the anthropometry, decrease in body fat, impact on blood sugars, impact on cholesterol. Similarly, we've done some work with nuts, and again, using nuts as as an input to replace the high fat, salt, sugar, snacks which are so predominant in today's eating, is again favoring good microflora. And we have done some inflammatory markers, because that's also a randomized control trial we've just finished and we are in the process of publishing. We've seen a decrease in the inflammatory markers just by this introduction of a defined quantity of nuts on per day basis. So when we talk of prebiotics and probiotic, it's something like fitness. I cannot be fit if I say it's a 1 month program or it's a 2 months program. I think prebiotic and probiotic is a commitment for life. So let's remember that we have to give food to the gut bacteria on daily basis, which means the awareness, what Dr. George was saying, that we not only need to make people aware of, what are the probiotics, we also need to make people aware that which are the foods which have to be your everyday foods, so that that becomes a prebiotic substrate for your gut to favor the growth of beneficial microorganism, give time for colonization. And to this milieu, if you add a probiotic, and that's education, probiotic is not anything which you ferment. And what brilliantly Dr. Renu pointed out, that there are specific microorganisms with specific detailing which you put in a product in a defined concentration, and you make sure that it is live when it reaches your body. I think that's what is the kind of education people need. So prebiotic is something which you need to capture from your daily diet, but for that you need to be prudent, you need to be educated that this is the checklist which has to be my everyday food, because this is going to boost my gut flora, microflora. And this is an add-on of probiotic, which I know is a scientific a quantification of a specific strain of bacteria which has come into my food. And if these two become a duo on a daily basis, then I think we are doing a phenomenal job. I just would like to add one more point here. I think there is a lot to learn, not only just to pick the right food. Like what we found was that in India, being in India, I talk about Indian foods. And I think legumes are one of the very important foods which should not be underrated. They should be emphasized, because we found a huge amount of resistant starch in legumes, especially chickpea, your Bengal gram, your whole mung, and also the way we treat the food. It's just by steaming or cooling, you are retrograding the starch, so increasing the resistant starch content. You're dextrinizing the starch, you're increasing the resistant starch content. So even the way we are handling food, I think, is very important. And the last word which I want to say is that today we are worried about the HFSS food, but I'm also worried about the advanced glycation end products which are being formed in the food because of the dry heat treatment, high temperature treatments to the food, and especially the ready to eat foods which we are exposed to. So I think all these aspects are definitely impacting our gut microflora. And besides doing our science and research into the specific strains of bacteria, I think we also need to make our science robust in terms of identifying the physiologically active components in natural foods, quantifying them, and creating a diet which is a checklist for the day, and educating people that if you are cautious and prudent about what you are eating on day to day basis, so you will do a blessing to your gut. And let me tell you, the gut health is the beginning of the story of inflammation. So, and the whole scenario today, which we are seeing of metabolic health, we are seeing of immunity, the starting point of this whole story is inflammation. And I think just by making these kind of modifications, we can do wonders to our gut health and boost our immunity, boost our metabolic health, and lower the degree of inflammation. So
I
I think a lot needs to be done in this space. As a nutritionist, I feel there's a huge amount of work which needs to be done, and we need to educate people about this.
I agree with you
Do-
100% on this, Dr. Madan. And
Dr. Madan,
Devanshi, yeah,
Dr.
go ahead.
Madan, I have a comment, and I'm happy to hear there's somebody else on the other side of the world that uses the same dictum as I do. Use your gut as the barometer of your health. That I tell people, your gut is good, your health is in general well-being. And I wanted to just add, you mentioned how foods are important. They are. There's regions of the world that the dietary microbe quantities in the foods are higher in other parts of the world than they are in other parts of lower in other parts of the world. And what we say is, yes, you can get your probiotics from your food, but because and this I think qualifies more in like North America and the Western cultures, because of the processes to manufacture foods, because sometimes the fermentation is not, as it was done back in the old times, because of the processing aids added to food. Sometimes enough. We don't get enough bacteria or microbes in these foods. So the IPA says, our microbiome is unique to us as our fingerprint. That it's our own DNA, and it shapes itself as we, depending on how we arrived in this world. It shapes itself on what we put in it. It gets modulated from the different things we put in it. If we're going to give it food that has, a good quantity of microbes, I think we should also talk about, make sure that those foods uh, contain, probiotics. And where to look for that? We say look on the label. And what do you look for? You look for some of the items which Dr. Renew pointed out. What quantifies a bacteria to be a probiotic? So all
Yes.
this is chaining the discussion, and thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for
Thank
your
you.
comments. Thank
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I think
I just wanted
Devanshi
to
is.
add. I just wanted to add that I think now it's all about the balance of the microbes. So we have both good and bad bacteria, and the interventions like probiotics, prebiotics, and also symbiotics, they just alter the composition, increase the beneficial components, and that leads to a healthier life. So whatever we can do, to increase the beneficial microbes in our gut, which ultimately will decide the health of the gut, and that's I think very important.
And that's why, Dr. Nirja, they say, I have a gut feeling. So there is a reason why they say that.
Yeah.
It's
Yes,
a it's a
absolutely.
question it's a question of
Absolutely.
space, right? It's a
Yes,
question of
yes.
space.
Yes.
getting more good bacteria to occupy more of the space in
More,
our gut and
yes,
pushing
yes,
out the bad.
Absolutely.
It's
bad
very simple.
bacteria. Yes,
It's so
yes.
simple.
Devanshi is there, and she is giving me an indication that there are some questions. So I think we will just open it to the audience so that we can answer some questions. Though I can't thank you all enough. Each one of you just put so much of emphasis on the relevant points. I think so. And Devanshi, I'll leave the floor to you to ask the questions, and one of us will take it, and then I'll wrap it up.
Sure, sure. So we have questions from the audience, but due to time constraint, we'll only be taking two questions. So one of them is from Mr. Vikas Kumar. What is the basic safety need for CBE products for production and transportation for export?
Dr. Renu Agrawal, would you like to take, or
No, I
Dr.
think
Nirja?
industry is better.
Nirja, ma'am, would you like to
Sorry,
take it? Would you like to take this question? Can you just repeat it, Devanshi?
I didn't get the question.
I can tell from academic point of view. I can answer.
Yes, sure. The question is, what is the basic safety need for CBE products for production and transportation for export?
Neecha, madam.
CBE.
What is CBE?
What
What
is
does CBE
CBE? I
stands
didn't get
for?
that.
Yeah, what does CBE stand for actually? What is it
Yeah.
that they want to ask? Can we take the next one, and I'll just get back to him on a personal chat or personal mail and tell
Sure,
Yeah,
him
sure. No
about
yeah.
it.
worries. No worries. I'll
Yes.
ask the other question, which is from Shivani. The question is, can probiotics and next generation probiotics be sustainable alternatives to antibiotics in animal production?
I think for that question, for sure, I can take it as an industrialist. Yes, it is sustainable, and for anti. In fact, even a country like Bangladesh is changing the norms wherein they are banning antibiotics.
Hmm.
So now there is the only way, and as Dr. Nirja had explained so beautifully, that the SCFA, that is short chain fatty acids, are the main reasons through which you can actually get these bad pathogens out, or otherwise the probiotics themselves have an action wherein they can reduce these pathogens. So in animal
Also,
nutrition,
they can be
actually,
given as a combination also.
yes,
Yeah.
and in
With the
animals
antibiotic dose
actually,
and yeah.
yeah, in animals actually we see, in animal nutrition at least we see, and it is very important because if anything were to happen in animal nutrition, we generally tend to cull these animals. You had a bad bout of some bird flu, you are going to cull these animals. You don't understand that the next batch of the birds or next batch of the animals are also going to produce similar things. So epidemics and pandemics, they don't go away so easily. They take time to go away, and which we are facing right now with second wave and third wave and fourth wave and up to fifth wave. So anyway, I think
Also,
Devanshi,
probiotics can produce bacteriocins, which have an antimicrobial property.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That
So,
is what I
probiotics
told
can,
about the
yes.
bacteriocin.
So they
Yeah.
have, yeah, bacteriocins. So that
Yeah.
therefore they can have an antimicrobial and could be
The
used
Yes.
as an alternative.
Exactly.
absolutely,
For the shelf
absolutely.
life studies, academically, shall I reply?
If you can just wrap it up, madam, because they are insisting that I need to wrap it up in next 2 minutes.
Okay, sure. Go ahead.
So, if what I understand from this today's discussion is that definitely probiotics are important, and as I said, it is you are what you eat, and that's why it is very important for us to make sure that we are keeping the number of these good bacteria high in your intestine, so that you can take care of your immunity, which takes care of your immunity, which actually doesn't allow any of these infections to proliferate. So maybe proactive steps is more important than reactive steps, and you are off the medicines, you are off all other issues. A healthy life or a healthy gut goes a long way in your life. Thank you so much, all of you. It was an absolute pleasure and privilege to moderate this panel. And actually, on each question, there were so many multiple questions I only want to ask. I think later on, we should all come together to discuss this more in detail, or ask scientists to actually have a symposium only on probiotics. We have that much more to give to back again.
Thank you.
In this whole,
Thank you so much
yeah.
to all the panel members for joining in. Due to time constraint, we would not be able to continue further. Thank you so much once again for your wonderful insights, and a special thanks to Ms. Desi Raju for moderating this session also very well. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And we
Thank
look
you.
forward to see you
Bye.
in our next channel.
Bye bye. Yeah, yeah. Thank you.